Good morning. You're listening to the Mac and Jack Sports Show on Northeast Streaming Sports.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Mac and Jack Sports Show, live 8 to 10 a.m. every Wednesday through Sunday, folks. Streaming live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. Our Mac Sports Facebook page and a Northeast Streaming Sports Facebook page. We're also on the Northeast Sports YouTube channel, also on Twitter and Instagram. Like, share, comment, and please subscribe to the Northeast Streaming Sports YouTube channel for all the great NESSP shows. Our website is nessp.info. Check it out. Shows, info, stores, and links to the stores. I'm Mac with your co-host, Jack Hirsch, legendary boxing writer and former president of the Boxing Writers Association of America, bringing you national sports with special focus on Northeast professional sports from New York, Boston, and Philly. Good morning, Jack. How are you doing today?
Hey, good morning, Mac. Our Saturday debate show is here. So
Yes, sir.
I get to speak my mind once a week here.
Once a week?
You can't cut me off where I can go on and on.
Oh, my God, Jack. I can't cut you off at any time. Today, Jack, on our show, as we always have, is one of our favorite guests from the blog Start Spreading the News. He's a famous author now. I mean, he's award-winning. He's selling a book called Scattering the Ashes, and we're glad to have him every week. Let's bring on Doctor Paul Semendinger, our weekly guest on the debate show. How are you doing today, Doc?
Mac, I'm doing great. Jack, I always love hearing you get not interrupted, so this is good.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, folks, for the new viewers out there, or even some of the older viewers that join every week, me and Jack have our debate show where we take sports topics, we break them down, we make our comments and give our opinions on them. And every week we have, again, Dr. Paul Semendinger come in with our MLB update, our Yankee update, if you will. And he also is starting to participate in the debates with us, which is excellent. So we have a lot of fun here, and we give you a lot of information, and we give you a lot of past updates, what we think are what's happening today, and maybe what will be happening in the future. So before we get to that, folks, we're going to do our sports update real quick. And Jack, the NFL stays in the headlines. J.J. Watt, as we broke the news yesterday through some of our guests and our shows out there, is leaving the Houston Texans, Jack. One of the biggest names in football has requested to leave.
After criticizing the Houston Texan organization the way I did yesterday, I'm going to say something complimentary about them, even though I still have a low opinion of the way they've handled things. In the J.J. Watt situation, even though they kind of forced his hand, they didn't indicate they were going to re-sign him. They let him go without making it difficult on him. In other words, they didn't demand draft choices from another team. They allowed J.J. Watt to move on, and they didn't hold out for compensation. They showed that respect to J.J. Watt, him being the Houston Texan icon that he is, what he's meant to the Houston community. So I want to praise the Texan organization today. That hurts for me to do it, but I have to do it because they did the right things. So kudos to the Houston Texan organization on this day for the way they handled the J.J. Watt situation.
I definitely agree with that, Jack. I mean, the man has played his tail off. He's been a pro bowler. He's perhaps a future Hall of Famer the way he's played while he's been there.
He is a future, Mac. He is a future Hall of Famer. You're the guy who didn't vote for Jeter. Man, your standards are tough.
Listen. JJ Watt. I have nothing to do with the vote, so we'll see what the voters say. Jack, Chris Doyle, the recent hire from Iowa, was alleged to have made some controversial statements to black athletes. He was hired by Meyer and has we talked about yesterday, in college football and pros is two different things. Urban Meyer ruled the school over there at Ohio State. What he said pretty much went, and the local press pretty much will go along with somebody that popular who has won national championships. But when you get to the NFL, it's all different. I mean, they're going to go after you on every move you make. They're gonna question your moves, and so he's Chris Doyle has resigned in one day, Jack.
I don't know the details of what went on in the past. I can't comment on all that. The only thing I do know, and that's obvious, is that the hiring of Chris Doyle was starting to cause a major distraction, putting the Jacksonville Jaguars in the news in a very uncomfortable way. Whether Chris Doyle is guilty of the things that's been talked about, I don't know. I don't know the circumstances and everything involved, and I'm not passing judgment one way or the other. But when he offered his resignation, that was the easiest way to go at that point. They weren't about to talk him out of it. And Urban Meyer, the only thing I could say, before the hiring, he should have put the word out there. He should have checked with players on the team. Are you going to feel uncomfortable with this at all? If they said they were, the hiring never should have been made. If the players said, no, coach, we're good with it, we're willing to deal with any public criticism, then you could go ahead with the hiring and stick by the guy. But it seems like Urban Meyer and the Jacksonville Jaguars didn't do their due diligence beforehand. And there was a big backlash. And they put a stop to it, or Coach Doyle did, by resigning shortly after. Now I think we could all move on. But it was just handled the wrong way. We could all agree on that.
Yeah, I think in the behind the doors there, they suggested he resign. Hello to Stewie Palmer. Over there in Wales, in Europe. I mean, we're over there in Europe, Jack. Stewie does a great wrestling podcast for us. And
Matt, Stewie would like someday to talk old school wrestling with me. So you're the man to make it happen, Mac.
I'd
to arrange it, an old school wrestling show where we just talk old school.
Right. So we'll talk about Georgie Animal Steel and King Tutter, whatever his name is, and Chief J Strongbow, all them guys. We'll talk.
Doc will appreciate this. I once wrote an article years ago. Wrestling is a learning tool. I use wrestling, believe it or not, to do some teaching in the classroom geography, where the wrestlers were from. And that motivated the kids, because certain of the heroes, the wrestlers, who are from other countries, other areas in the United States. And we would tie things in, and it was quite good. And the students would be interested in asking questions. So it was kind of a fun time.
I love that. I think that's a great lesson. If I were watching you teach it, I'd give you high marks.
Yeah.
Really? Look at that.
I used to like to do lessons where I would ask the kids, this especially kids who didn't want to do any research or anything, like, what could I do a research project on? I used to say, why don't you figure out why certain teams are named certain things?
Yeah.
Like the Lakers. They came from, the lands of the lakes up in Minnesota, right? Then they moved to LA or whatever. But the idea was, where do teams get their nicknames from? What was a Dodger, et cetera? And cool. What does that have to do with the geography of the area? And then the kids were immediately, they'd buy right in, and there was something that was interesting about geography all of a sudden. So you and I were thinking alike with lessons like that.
And I hate to say it, you just perked my interest. I don't know the answer to the Dodger question. I'd love to sit in the class like one of the students, get a seat in the corner and pick up on that. The only time I had a difficult time, one kid asked me about The Undertaker. Now, he came from parts unknown. How do you deal with that?
That's true. So, guys, in our local basketball games, we'll give you the two scores on that. The Celtics lose to the Pistons, 108-102. Jack Tatum with 33 points and 11 rebounds. Brown with 27 points. And the Knicks beat the Wizards 109-91. Randall again having a great game, 24 points and 18 rebounds. Derrick Rose, and quickly with a combined 30 points off the bench. So, Jack, before you get going, good pickup with Derrick Rose. Got quickly going a little bit. They both combined for 30 points. I think it was 16 and 14, and Randall doing a lot of the dirty work again.
Well, Randall grabbed 18 rebounds. I mean, that's a career high for him. That impressed me a great deal. Washington was playing without Bradley Beal. They're not too good a team. I'll tell you who impressed me, and you're going to laugh. Not for his play on the court, Russell Westbrook. Russell Westbrook, you see him in the huddle urging his teammates on during the game. And when you think of it, the Wizards are a terrible team. Russell Westbrook hardly has a prayer of getting a ring, with that team. Yet he's coming there with a very nice attitude. So I kind of want to compliment him on that. And you're right what you said about Derrick Rose. I mean, during the game yesterday, Derrick Rose was going in. There was a 2-on-1. He could have scored on an easy layup, but he tried to pass the ball to Randall, and it surprised Randall that Derrick Rose would give up on 2 easy points like that. See, he brings a team play element into it. He brings a calming influence. Derrick Rose, veteran leadership to the Knicks. And, Julius Randle, I'll tell you, I maybe underrated him a little bit. I mean, he's been a heck of a player this year. And it's more than just the Knicks needing having someone score the points for them because someone has to do it. Scores, grabs, rebounds, plays, assists. He's playing like a true all-star this year.
I agree with that, Jack. In hockey, the Bruins beat the Rangers in a defensive game. Nick Ritchie with the winning and only goal. So the Bruins continue to dominate the East, Jack, and the Rangers still too young, I think.
Rangers just have a hard time scoring. They've been shut out in 2 of their last 3 games, and they're going to have to find a way to put the puck in the net. It's just not happening for them.
Yeah, I agree with that. Jack. So yes, they are, folks. They're the New York Yankees. And our guest today, of course, not only does he know the Yankees, he knows all about Major League Baseball when it comes to history and what's going on now. But Dr. Paul Semendinger is definitely a Yankee. He has a blog, as I said in the beginning, start spreading the news, which is excellent. If you have a chance, guys, go over there and check it out. You can get to it through Facebook. It's a big Twitter page he has over there. And, an excellent blog, tremendous information about the Yankees. Now, guys, every week, me or my producer, my assistant producer, Linda, put up a poll question for the Yankees. And we try to get the pulse on what the Yankees are thinking, right? The Yankee fans are thinking about their team, what's happened to it, what's going on, all that good stuff. So for the poll today, Jack and Doc, I put this question. Now that DJ LeMahieu is signed, what do the Yankees do with Gleyber Torres defensively? Do they move him back to second and try and pick up a shortstop and use DJ as a utility infielder like they did in his first year? Leave him at shortstop and DJ starts at second? Or do they trade the young possible superstar for a shortstop and a couple other players? So that was the poll question, guys. And what would be your answer to that?
I feel they have no choice but to leave him at shortstop, work with him, hope he improves, and there's just nowhere to put him, and he's too much of a talent to just trade unless, obviously, you get the right deal, and we could talk about that later on in the show. Just nowhere to put him. I mean, LeMahieu's at second base. Unless Luke Voigt is somehow traded, if Luke Voigt is DHing on a given day, and we'll talk about that too later. Then DJ LeMahieu could be at first, Gleyber Torres at second, and whoever else they put, at shortstop. I'm not even sure who the Yankee backup is at shortstop for Gleyber Torres at this point, but you could always find a no-hit decent defensive player, in the major leagues. But there's no choice, and he's just too great of a talent to give up on. I mean, and remember what he produced the year before last. Okay, yeah. Offensively. So to me, you have to leave him at shortstop. I can't imagine what else you could do with him.
And how about you, Doctor?
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. He's got to play shortstop. LeMahieu was signed to be the second baseman, and that's where his talent lies. He's a great second baseman. He's a great defensive second baseman. I know all the talk about, well, he could play first base, but first base is usually a power hitting position, and DJ LeMahieu is not going to hit for the type of power that you really need most often out of a first baseman. And Luke Voigt's the home run champ, and so I don't really get the idea of moving LeMahieu to first. So if LeMahieu is going to play second, then Gleyber Torres is going to play short. Now, they said that the truncated spring training and then the delay and then the late start to the season left him not in the best shape. And so I opined on Start Spreading the News this week that, one of the things that could happen if you're the young 23-year-old superstar in waiting in Gleyber Torres, and there's people talking about your conditioning and the fact that you're not who you should be. If that were me, that would have fired me up all winter long to get into camp in the best shape I've ever been in and the most range of motion to show everybody that they're wrong. The interesting thing also about Gleyber is he is a shortstop. Right. He played that 1 year at second, but that was the year they were trying him in at second. And throughout his whole minor league career, he was primarily a shortstop. So that is his natural position. You have to think that he can play it. Now, he wasn't great. And my offseason plan had the Yankees getting Francisco Lindor and moving Gleyber to second and not re-signing LeMahieu. That would have been my plan. Obviously, that didn't happen. Since LeMahieu's back, then I say Gleyber's got to play short, and he is the future, so you got to play him. That's where he plays.
That's the question I wonder about. I'm throwing this out there. Now, if DJ LeMahieu didn't play second base, I'm sure he could be a good first baseman. I think he could probably be a good third baseman. Why can't a guy who could play second and third and first, they'd never consider him for shortstop?
That's a great question. I you know what? There are certain things that I think we as fans, we look at and then we say, like, why don't they? He must not have the range. He can play third. It's much more of a reaction position. But shortstop, you have to really cover much deeper ranges, and he must not have that range in order to be able to play shortstop.
But aren't you covering the same range basically at second base, but you just have a shorter throw?
You turn the double play differently, and second base is a completely different position than shortstop. I mean, they look like they're just on opposite sides, but they're second base is an easier defensive position to play. You're not going to take a great shortstop and move him to second, and you're not going to be able to take a great second baseman and make him into a great shortstop. That I don't think I've ever seen that happen.
Yeah, we've seen shortstops move to third. With Ripken, I've seen shortstops move to second. It seems like it's an easier move than moving somebody to shortstop. And as you said, Torres, that's his natural position. So I don't know why he had such a problem last year. I mean, he wasn't terrible, but he just didn't make the plays that we thought he could make as he showed at second base. So to let you guys know, you both hit it right. They both, everyone for the most part said, work with Torres there, keep him as such. But believe it or not, there were some votes on having him traded and stuff. So I think that's a little drastic. But I threw it up there because there are some fans out there that they will say almost anything and such. So anyway, so that was it for the poll question, guys. So next we have our weekly trivia question.
Here we go.
So, guys, this is a trivia question, a Yankees trivia question for you. And it goes like this. Where did the Yankees first play after moving to New York, what was the place that they actually started playing in? And I'll go to Jack first so he doesn't cheat, and ride Doctor's coattails here.
What year
So
was the Polo Grounds put up?
there's no questions, Jack. I'm not going to answer questions
I
for
mean,
you. I'm asking the question. Listen, it was from. I'll give you the years.
Before Yankee Stadium.
Yeah, obviously.
I'm going to. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'll say the Polo Grounds.
And Doc.
The first park. Now, if there was one before this, I don't know about it, but the Highlanders played at Hilltop Park.
There you go, Doc. Nailed it again. So Hilltop Park is where.
Where was that located?
That was in Manhattan, not far from Columbia.
Yes. Yes. So there you go.
Where Lou Gehrig went, but that was before Lou Gehrig's time.
That was before Lou Gehrig's time. That is correct.
Yeah.
Yes,
I think they moved out of Hilltop Park around 1913 or 1914, and they did spend a couple of years at the Polo Grounds.
I mean, how many fans did that hold? I mean, I'm curious.
I don't have that in front of me. I'd have to look that up. But it was a little park.
Little park.
Yeah, they were there from 1903 to 1912 is when they were there. So I guess after that, as Jack said, they did move to the Polo Grounds. So the Highlanders did move to the top of Manhattan Island, which is one of the reasons they were called.
Did they move to the Polo Grounds after that?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
So
yeah,
it's a gold medal. I get a silver medal.
Okay, we'll give you a silver medal, Jack. We have our own Mac and Jack Olympics going on right now, folks. So you're tuned in for that also. So, guys, we're going to start with our debates. Jack's going to go first, and the debate topic, first one, is should Carlos Stanton be used exclusively as a DH for the Yankees? Go ahead, Jack.
Okay, if you want to know why you shouldn't sign these guys to 10-year contracts, John Carlos Stanton's a great example. We have other examples, unless you can get a 25-year-old Mike Trout. Him you sign to a 10-year deal. But people forget how great John Carlos Stanton was when Miami, dealt him over to the Yankees. It's as if the Yankees couldn't turn him down. He was coming off a 59 home run season for the Marlins. And if I told you at the end of that season that John Carlos Stanton was the best player in Major League Baseball, you might disagree, but you couldn't come up with that big of an argument. It was a credible argument to say that at the time. I mean, he was a monster. He was elite. He was a superstar. But also the point is he had 10 years left on his contract. He also was an outfielder when he went from Miami to the Yankees. He was an outfielder, and people forget him joining Aaron Judge turned the Yankees into a Broadway show each night. Each night, no matter who they played. And as I mentioned in the previous show, these guys were so charismatic. ESPN broadcast batting practice of Judge and Stanton. I mean, wow. Somewhere along the line, he got diminished. His first year with the Yankees was a good year, not a sensational. 38 homers, 100 RBIs. If you're going to do that every year the rest of your career, we'll probably take it. But for Giancarlo Stanton, it was considered a letdown following his 59 season, 59 homer season. The last couple of years he's been hurt. He's shown flashes, notably in the playoffs last year, that he could be a monster when he's at his best, an absolute monster. And the problem partly is Brian Cashman here. Brian Cashman's basically calling the shots with the Yankee lineup. I mean, Aaron Boone has a certain amount of decision-making in there, but Brian Cashman let it be known that Giancarlo Stanton is an investment. We have to keep him healthy. If we keep him healthy, he's a monster. We're going to get a lot out of him in the DH position. But the problem is you're going to hurt the rest of the team. You're going to help Stanton. in that spot. What do you do when you want to give other guys a day off to rest? What do you do if you have a doubleheader? Aaron Judge plays one game. You want to rest Aaron Judge the second game, but Aaron Judge isn't overly tired, and it would be an ideal spot for Aaron Judge to DH the second game of a doubleheader. But no, you can't do it because you have Giancarlo Stanton in there. What do you do if Gary Sanchez makes a nice comeback this year and he's a good catcher, and you give him those off days now and then? Catchers need off days more than anyone. You can't DH Gary Sanchez if he's swinging a really good bat. And the same thing, DJ LeMayo down the line. I mean, he's tied up that position of DH because you refuse to play him in the outfield. And the thing about Giancarlo Stanton, people don't realize he's not a bad outfielder. He's adequate. He's better than average. I'm not going to call him elite, but he's better than average in my opinion, at least. He's not, in other words, he's not a liability. He's not a slouch. You don't put him out there in the field. He's not like David Ortiz may have been in the field for the Red Sox. Giancarlo Stanton can actually field, and it sends a bad message to the rest of the team. I want to go back on mindset in history. Reggie Jackson struggled in right field in the 1977 Yankee championship season. And they asked him, would you consider being a DH going forward? He said, no, not till late in my career. Basically, when he was at the end of the line, he agreed maybe he could be a DH then when he's hanging on. Players need that time in the field to recharge themselves. They get their head in the game. And also, Giancarlo Stanton might be more likely to injure himself as a DH because you're sitting in the dugout, you're cold, your muscles, you're not as loose. You could try to stretch, in the corridor and all that. But if you're playing the field, you're constantly loose, at least on the defensive end. You're moving around more. So you're a little less likely to get hurt. And I just feel, play him in left field. He doesn't have to be a full-time left fielder, no. But play him there, let's say, 40 games a year, 40, 50 games a year. And don't be so scared he's going to get injured. And don't be so timid. And don't treat him like he's glass coming in the box in the mail that you're scared it's going to break. So you're not going to mail it out. You have to ride by car and hand it to, the package to someone. No, he shouldn't be a full-time DH, in my view.
Well, Jack, I think Stanton should be traded, even if you pay part of the salary.
That's not part of it, man.
I know. I'm setting it up, Jack. I'm setting it up. It'd be fine with me. And the Yankee fans don't give me, look what he did in the playoffs. He's been in a total of 41 games in the last 2 years. He injures himself by running down to first. And in those 41 games he played, he struck out 51 times. And that's without playing in the field, Jack. So does he have power? Of course he has power. Is he good defensively? Well, in 2012, he was Defensive Player of the Year, Jack. So he does have some defensive qualities. Okay. So that was 9 years ago, though. So if you play him in the field, and who are you taking out, Judge? Jack Judge? Are you taking out one of the other outfielders and maybe hurt defensively? Maybe he gets hurt because he pulls his ankle out there in the outfield. Listen, Stan can't play center field. He can't run the first without getting injured. His bicep muscles get stretched and get hurt because he works out like he's a bodybuilder and not like he's playing baseball. You don't have to be that big to hit home runs. We saw that with Hank Aaron. He wasn't a huge man, and he's a home run leader of all time, in my opinion. So they might have tried it at first, but again, he's hurt too much, Jack. I mean, you can't even put him at first. What are you going to do with this man? I guess you could try him in the outfield, give Judge or whoever, a little rest. But he's got to stay healthy, Jack, and he can't stay healthy. So in principle, I agree with you. Of course, you got to get all the money you can for a player that you sign for that amount of money, or I should say pick up that contract for that amount of money. So I guess he should be DH, Jack, exclusively. I mean, Big Papi was. Big Papi is a Hall of Fame. He's up for being inducted in the Hall of Fame. He won a lot of games for him. He had a lot of home runs. Very, very good clutch hitter. And I don't think you're going to say he shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame because he didn't play first base, are you? Of course not. So I say let's see if we can get through a year without him getting injured, Jack, before we put him out there into the outfield. So for right now, he should stay DH and prove that he can run the second without pulling the muscle. There you go. Doc, what do you got?
All right. So I like a combination of both of your ideas. The Yankees need to get him healthy, and he needs to stay healthy. Now, this is one of the things that I love about spring training and the preseason and the optimism that comes with all that. There's been reports the last number of weeks that the Yankees training staff is doing a whole different training regimen with Judge and with Stanton to not have them bulk up as much and have them become much more flexible. And if that's true, and this is what I love about spring training, because hope springs eternal, and maybe it will be true. And if they can both be healthy and flexible and not hurt themselves, as you say, when they run down to first base or when they're swinging a bat, because that's a problem that's hurt both of them, then you could put Stanton in the outfield, 40 games a year, whatever, double headers. Yeah. He could switch off with Aaron Judge once or twice a week. He could play left field a couple of times a week. And then you could DH Luke Voit. You could DH Aaron Judge. You could DH Clint Frazier. You could DH Gary Sanchez. I think if you make him the exclusive DH, you hurt the team because, again, as Jack was saying, you have no flexibility. And the Yankees have a lot of guys who would probably thrive being a DH once or twice a week. So I think the idea is to hope he's healthy and to hope that he can play in the outfield at least once or twice a week.
So what do you say about Papi then, Doc? I mean, Big Papi couldn't play defense at all, but he's going to be going into the Hall of Fame basically as a DH.
And Edgar Martinez did that, right? He basically made it into the Hall of Fame as a DH. I'm not saying that he can't be a DH and be great. He could hit 50 home runs this year as the DH. But for the Yankees roster construction, in order to make the team work to the best of its ability, I think he's got to play some in the outfield. I don't think it's going to serve the rest of the team to have Giancarlo Stanton playing 150 games as the DH.
And he's under contract with the Yankees, I believe, through 2027. 7 more years. That is a long time. And they're going to have to live with Stanton or do what they did with A-Rod down the line, lose a fortune of money, and just give up on the contract and take that massive financial loss, which no one wants to do. Okay?
Well, I believe, Jack, I think that a team would be interested in picking up Stanton's contract if you paid half of it. And, losing and maybe losing half of that contract can get you another player. So, you're paying Stanton anyway. Or maybe another 2 players.
He's getting about $28 million a year on average the rest of the way. So let's call it $28 million a year. We're in the ballpark. I don't think there's one team out there, not one, who would sign Stanton for 7 years at $14 million a year. Not one.
Yeah, you might be right.
And I don't even think it's close. Okay,
you might be right, except maybe California.
7 years is a long time. And he's basically considered now, because of what the Yankees did with him, more of a DH. I could see Stanton maybe a 3-year, $39 million deal somewhere thereabouts, knowing the economics of baseball. In any event, the Yankees are going to be stuck with him for a while. But I can see Brian Cashman's logic. If you keep him healthy exclusively as a DH, and I made a joke in the past show. We laughed about that Herman Munster episode. Yeah. He's a living version. This is a compliment towards Stanton. It's a big compliment. He's a living version of Herman Munster with the bat in his hands. Because, when he's getting in a groove, this guy is awesome. But you need him playing the left field. You can't tie up the DH position just for him with all the years, because it does have a trickle over effect to the rest of the team.
Well, I believe if you're going to pay somebody that amount of money, you better do more than DH is what I'm saying. That's just in principle.
So you kind of agree. Yeah.
Yeah. I said in principle, I definitely agree with that. Definitely. So our next topic, guys, is very interesting. Jack gave me an idea about, a three-way trade in the past, and I said, well, why don't we make it current? Now, this has to do with the Mets, guys, all right? Because, of course, that's our crosstown team there that competes for the last page in the New York press. So this is, should the Yankees, if it was all possible, trade Aaron Judge, Gabriel Torres, and Luke Voit to the Mets for Alfonso, Lindor, and Conforto? And you would agree those are all very good players. But how would it affect the teams if you were going to make that trade? So we're not counting the contracts, we're not counting the money, we're not counting all the stipulations that would come along with that. Just a 3-player swap.
That they're under contract the next few years. We'll pretend that they can be with the teams the next few years.
We're not going to talk about options and all that other stuff, Jack.
Right.
We're just going to go with a basic 3-year contract for all 6 of these guys. So I say no, Jack, because it's like.
Well, do you name all the players involved?
I already did, Jack. Are you listening to the show at all? Okay.
Okay. Well, repeat it again.
Okay.
Like announce it, lead in.
You could announce it when you come on, but again, it's Aaron Judge, Torres, and Voit for Alfonso, Lindor, and Conforto. So that's the trade. We're taking the Yankees angle on this. I'm going to say no, Jack. It's like trading an apple for an apple. I mean, where are you really gaining on this? I mean, you get a little left-handed batting from Lindor in your lineup. I mean, if you match power for power, you got Alfonso and Judge fairly even with power if Judge can stay healthy. But I think you'd say Judge is probably a better defensive fielder at his position than Alfonso is. Conforto and Judge almost evenly defensively, I would say. Maybe Judge with the better arm when he's healthy. The 2 X factors are going to be Torres and Voit. I mean, we saw what Torres can do a year ago offensively. He's a future superstar. If he can continue that, his defense last year had little problems, but again, they switched him and put him at shortstop, his old position, which he definitely, I think, will get better. Lindor would have fit in. I mean, if the Yankees didn't sign LeMahieu, like the doc has brought up. But since they did, Torres and his offensive potential to lose that would be a big mistake. I think offensively, he's better overall than Lindor. He can go to the other field. We saw him do that, even with power. And Voit is the other part of the X factor, Jack. Using last year as a guide, he was the home run hitter. So power, still not great defensively, but still young. He can only get better. So I think the overall trade really wouldn't help the Yankees, except maybe give them a little left-handed hitting and maybe a little pop from the left side. But if Torres can hit like he did a year ago, not last year, but the year before that, he's got power to right center field. So you're really not losing much. And maybe, potentially, you might be losing a lot, Jack.
Okay, this is all imagination. Let's say Brian Cashman moved on. I'm a Yankee fan. Let's say Hal Steinbrenner watches the Mac and Jack show. He likes my style. He's eccentric. He makes me his GM. Okay, now hanging out with Sandy Alderson, the GM of the Mets, and he proposes gently a 3-way deal. He wants to trade Francisco Lindor, Michael Conforto, and Pete Alonso to me to the Yankees in exchange for Aaron Judge, Gleyber Torres, and Luke Voit. Now, it's a pretty simple deal, guys, because it's position for position. Now, we're not going to break the package up on the deal. It either has to be 3 for 3 or not at all. Not saying eliminate this guy and I'll do it for that guy. It's 3 for 3. But even though we can't break the package up in the overall deal, to analyze the deal, we can. And let's take it position for position and see how viable it is. And we're looking at it from a Yankee perspective. Would you make the deal if you were the Yankees? We're not looking at it today from a Met perspective, asking, would you make the deal if you were the Mets? We're looking at it from a Yankee perspective. It's up to the Yankees whether they want to make the deal or not. You're offering me Francisco Lindor for Gleyber Torres. Am I going to say no? Come on. Francisco Lindor, one of the great defensive shortstops I can say of all time. I can make the argument of all time. A great fielder, a very good hitter. Gleyber Torres, at his best, is going to supply a little more offense. But Francisco Lindor has been a very good hitter over his career and a great fielder. I can say Francisco Lindor is another Ozzie Smith with more offense. I can make that argument, too. So I absolutely would take Lindor over Gleyber Torres. And this is even when Gleyber Torres has it all going and is, playing really well like a couple of years ago. Now, Luke Voigt and Pete Alfonso. I keep hearing, well, Luke Voigt is the home run champ. How do you get rid of the home run champ? Well, number one, it was in a shortened season. Luke Voigt was sensational last year. Sensational. Let's give him his due. It was a shortened season last year. Pete Alonso didn't do badly. The year before that, Pete Alonso hit 53 home runs. 53 home runs, and there's no evidence he was on steroids or the ball was, bouncy or whatever. Pete Alonso is the next coming of Mark McGwire before Mark McGwire had that, steroid issue, okay? He's a younger version of Mark McGwire. Also, Pete Alonso is a better defensive first baseman than Luke Voigt. Luke Voigt has been improving. He's been improving, but to say he's a good defensive first baseman's been a stretch. Alonso's a little better than average at first defensively. Voigt's a little below average. Now we got Conforto and Judge. This makes it hard. This is the killer for me how do you move on from Aaron Judge? Because Aaron Judge means more than just performance on the field to the Yankees. He's the heir apparent to Derek Jeter as far as the heart of the fans, the charisma. He's Derek Jeter light, basically. That's what Aaron Judge is. Aaron Judge is a terrific defensive player. He really is. I mean, last year he wasn't as good, but I've seen him make sensational plays. He's got a great arm. Michael Conforto is a very good defensive player. He's not that far behind Judge defensively. And also Conforto is a heck of a hitter. He hit 322 last year. Okay, you're going to tell me shortened season fair. Shortened, I won't argue. In the 3 seasons before that, Conforto averaged close to 30 home runs a year. So he's got power that's comparable to Judge. Not as great, but comparable. So we give Aaron Judge a little, an edge over Conforto when he's on the field. But guess what? Conforto is durable. Judge is injured a lot of the time. We wonder whether Judge can stay healthy for his career. For the first time, it's become a serious issue with Judge now. We have to think, can he stay healthy during his career? If you want to talk about superstars, Mickey Mantle and Willie Mays, Mickey Mantle was about as good as Willie Mays. You could argue he was better. Maybe Mays was a little better. I don't know. But everyone would take Willie Mays over Mickey Mantle because of the injury factor. Mays would be in the lineup for you the whole time. Mickey Mantle had these injuries that put him out for certain amounts of time. And that's my concern about Aaron Judge going forward. So, yes, I absolutely, if I'm the Yankees, as much as it would kill me to part with Aaron Judge because of, all the other elements, what he means to the fans, I would trade Judge, Voigt, and Torres for Lindor, Alonso, and Conforto.
Well, before we get to Doc, let me make a counterpoint here. While Lindor is better defensively at this point, Jack, that doesn't mean next year Torres will not be good defensively. As I said, they moved him back to shortstop. He played an unbelievable second base the year before. And offensively, miles ahead of Lindor, really. I mean, you're talking batting average and power and RBIs and speed too, Jack. This kid is young. He's aggressive. And if he gets back to his old position with spring training, he might be better than Lindor. I don't know about this Ozzie Smith Lindor comparison. That's ridiculous. And as far as Voit goes, Voit, again, another young kid they picked off the heap, surprised everybody. And as far as Alfonso goes, defensively, he had problems last year, Jack. He's only been in the league for, 3 years now? His home runs dropped off, his batting average dropped off, and he made more defensive errors than he did his rookie year. So to say that Alfonso is better right now than Voit might be true, but the scale's going in the wrong direction, Jack. The scale's going in the wrong direction. Alfonso's starting to fall off. So maybe Alfonso will be the next great home run champion. I don't know about a Mark McGwire, but maybe he will be a good power hitter for the Mets. Right now, I got Judge hitting when he's healthy 50 home runs, just as much, if not more, than Alfonso in the future.
Alonso is a blue chip prospect.
I got a shortstop right now that's just came to our shortstop, going to be playing second year. That's volumes above offensively than Lindor. And I got Aaron Judge, as you said, when healthy, can throw you out at home from the fence. Hey, Doc, what do you think?
All right. I don't know if you're going to like my answers here. You ready? I'm going to throw some numbers at you. This guy hit 33 home runs in 2017. He hit 38 home runs in 2018, and he hit 32 home runs in 2019. He was an MVP candidate for 4 consecutive years, finishing in the top 15 each of those years in 2016, 2017, 2018, and 2019. That guy, believe it or not, Francisco Lindor.
Oh, Lindor, really?
Yeah, he's a switch hitter. I want the Yankees to get more balance in the lineup. If I had to choose, all things being equal, between Gleyber Torres, who I love, or Francisco Lindor, Gleyber's got the edge in years. I think he's about 4 years younger. Lindor, I think, is the better player. I would make that trade easy. Now, Gleyber's going to be very inexpensive. We weren't going to talk about money. Lindor's going to be a $300 million ball player. So if money is the thing that the trade hinges on, I think you keep Gleyber Torres.
No, money isn't an issue.
Right. So I think then Alonso and Voit, I think are very similar players. I think it's a wash there. But then you look at Judge and Conforto. Now here's some home run totals. A couple of years ago, we got 2018. Conforto hit 28 homers. Judge, 27. The next year, Conforto hit 33. Judge, 27. Last year, they both hit 9. So over the last 3 years, you've got Conforto with 70 home runs, Judge with 63. Again, Judge is the Yankees. That would be the problem with this trade. He is the face of the Yankees, and he is the guy. But in order to be great, you need to be on the field. And in 2018, Conforto played in 153 games. Judge, 112. The next year, Conforto played in 151 games. Judge, 102. Last year, Conforto played in 54 games. Judge, 28. I think from a purely baseball, and Conforto's a left-handed hitter. I think from a purely baseball standpoint, if you're the Yankees, you choke down real hard and you take that trade. I think they're the 3 better players.
Yeah, but there's a point to me.
I'm surprised at you, Doc.
Me too.
I didn't think you would pull the trigger on this deal, have the guts to do it. You know, with the Yankee blog, the feedback you might get, you've got guts. I got to tell you that.
Yes, he does. The only way I would make that trade, guys, if they put McCann in for Sanchez also. If they put Sanchez in there, I'd take it. Doc, I hear what you're saying, but I'll tell you right now, he wasn't that far behind Conforto with playing almost half the games that he played in home runs. So,
that's true.
So you look at it that way. Of course, Judge has got to get healthy. And, of course, we're talking about what they're going to be doing in the next 3 years, not what they've already done. So I think a trade is valued as much off potential as it is.
They're all young, but they're all young. They're all under 30. The oldest guy is Voit, who's 29.
Yeah, I'm not talking about.
It's going to be a factor here.
I'm not talking about age. I'm talking potential and what they're going to be playing and what they're going to be doing.
I'm going to tell you something. If Conforto was the right fielder for the New York Yankees, hypothetically, his charisma level would shoot up much higher than it is.
Oh, he's a great player.
Mets.
Oh, he's a great player.
Something about Conforto, he's a charismatic type player, even though it hasn't played out completely that way with the Mets. But he was a Yankee right fielder. The Yankee fans would love him, especially a right-handed hitter. A left-handed hitter with the right field. Yeah.
You try with the Yankee fans to trade away Aaron Judge, and you'll see how much.
Oh, I know. It's a tough.
Yeah.
I will say this: if Aaron Judge spends the next year or two injured a lot, I think the aura of Aaron Judge goes away. He becomes one of those guys who you say he would have been great, but it just didn't happen.
And
that being said. And that happens. Yeah, that happens a lot. Ron Blomberg, right? He was great. Nick Johnson.
No, Ron, you can't compare him to Aaron Judge, Ron Blomberg.
Yeah, but the idea that this was a number one Yankee draft pick who came up, he was going to be great, and he just wasn't healthy. He got hurt a lot. The point is, Nick Johnson is a similar type of guy, a guy who could have been great. He got hurt a lot. Aaron Judge put up the numbers in that rookie year, which. And then a little bit over the last couple of years, but he's been hurt so much. Yeah. But he has captured the imagination of the Yankee fans, and he is the Yankees, as we said. So it's sort of like, I did an article on this a while ago. Would you trade Ted Williams for Joe DiMaggio? It's the same type of thing. Like, how do you get rid of Joe DiMaggio? If the Yankees had made that trade, it would have been one of the most brilliant things they ever did, because DiMaggio was so much older than Ted Williams, and Williams played for another 9 years after DiMaggio had retired. But when you have these iconic players, Derek Jeter, he stayed at shortstop when A-Rod comes over, Aaron Judge, it becomes very hard to trade these guys because they symbolize the franchise. So
if you're going to buy a Yankee jersey with a player's name on it, the player you're most likely to get is Aaron Judge. Far and away, you get a Judge thing on the back of the jersey. I don't know what sales are, but I would bet by far that's the biggest selling Yankee item.
Yeah, I would too, Jack. I would definitely do that. Again, to me, it's an apple for an apple right now. I would have to wait another couple of years on Judge to see what happens. As you said, injuries, they mess up a lot of players, a lot of great players.
Sandy Alderson is calling you now, Mac. You want to wait a couple of years.
I'll take if they throw in McCann, if they throw in McCann, my loyalty is.
I will say this: if I'm guaranteed, absolutely guaranteed, of Aaron Judge being healthy going forward, guarantee I don't make the deal.
I hear you.
I'm guaranted.
Right,
I'm not confident that would be the case.
Yeah, that's a big what if, and that's the problem right now. And it's the same thing with Stanton. It's a big what if. Are you going to be healthy? So far, both of those players haven't.
Stanton, there's the difference.
You know what's a good comparison? It would be Don Mattingly. Would you have traded Don Mattingly after the 1988 or 89 season? No way would you do that, because he was Don Mattingly. He was great. He wasn't great going forward because he had an injury. And that's what derailed his Hall of Fame career, right? It's the same kind of thing to a lesser extent, because Judge isn't Mattingly yet. But the same kind of thing. He is the iconic Yankee. You really can't get rid of him. But from an academic sense, if you're looking at numbers and games played and home runs and all that, you say you could make an academic argument that the trade makes sense for the Yankees.
They can, but the Yankees they did get rid of a kind of iconic player in Bobby Mercer.
That's true.
That was a big surprise to people. But look, they got Bobby Bonds, and they parlayed Bobby Bonds into Mickey Rivers and Ed Figueroa. So it turned out to be, and they got Bobby Mercer back,
right?
Late on too. So it kind of turned out to be a great deal.
Yeah, I think Bobby Mercer. Didn't he go to the Mets? If I'm correct,
am I right? Went to the Giants and then the Cubs.
And the short, the short porch wasn't there for him in both parks. So he had a little problem with other parks. I know that.
That's like when the Mets got rid of Tom Seaver. There's a good example. Like, how do you get rid of Tom Seaver?
Things had gotten bad, really bad between Seaver and the Mets. That wasn't a baseball decision per se. Seaver was critical of the Mets front office. They were mad at him. Seaver got into it with Dick Young, the sports writer, who was very influential then, who would be ripping Seaver in the papers all the time. And it got to be ugly. It was personal. And the Mets really screwed the Seaver thing up. They brought him back only to trade him away again. And they didn't treat him like the icon of icons.
The franchise. I mean,
the franchise. Right.
Okay, guys. Guys, we're going to take our first break. We'll be back on the other side, viewers, with a lot of more debates. We're going to talk about the Jets and the Knicks. I mean, we got basketball, football. We got all kinds of stuff coming up. So stay with us.
And the Hall of Fame.
We got a lot of different topics that we're going to be talking about. So stick with us, and Doc will stay with us through the break, and he'll be back on the other side too. So we'll be right back after this, folks.
If you served honorably in our nation's armed forces and you're looking for a way to continue serving your fellow veterans in your community, then join AMVETS. Each year, AMVETS members volunteer millions of hours at VA healthcare facilities from coast to coast, helping to improve the lives of their fellow veterans through the VA Voluntary Services Program. AMVETS posts and departments also participate in a wide variety of community service projects, ranging from Americanism in our schools to supporting the Special Olympics and Boy Scouts of America. If you no longer wear the uniform today, you can still serve through the AMVETS by joining today at amvets.org.
Hi, Grandma. What's for dinner?
Hey, honey, I'm making stew tonight.
Ooh, can Nina come over?
I'm not sure about our new friend. I wonder if there's been any drinking going on. Alcohol at her age can lead to so many bad things. I've been meaning to ask you, what would happen if someone offered you a drink?
Grandma?
This is hard. She's so young, but I know I need to talk to her about it now before someone tries to give her alcohol. If anyone ever does offer you a drink, I want you to say no. I have too much respect for my family, and I don't want to get in trouble.
Okay.
Really?
I promise, Grandma.
I love you too. Okay, how about tasting this stew and telling me what you think?
Some children may try alcohol as young as 9 years old. It's not too early to talk about drinking. For tips on how to begin the conversation, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. That's underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. This message brought to you by SAMHSA and this station.
When you hear the word asthma, you probably think of shortness of breath, coughing, or inhalers. Lots of things can trigger asthma, but the fact is that asthma doesn't just attack, it can kill. But with proper medical management, asthma is controllable. If you experience shortness of breath, wheezing, tightness in your chest, or persistent nighttime coughing, you may have asthma. See your doctor and get the facts. You'll breathe easier. For more information, call 211 Infoline. A message from the Connecticut Department of Public Health, keeping Connecticut healthy.
If you talk and they will hear you every single time.
Oh, we're getting killed.
Yeah, well, Kyle's not here.
How come?
Kicked off the team. Didn't Tim tell you? Kyle and some other kids got caught drinking beer in the park a couple of nights ago.
Really?
Yeah. 0 tolerance. He's out for the season.
Come on, it's a first offense, right?
That we know of. But why should that matter? He knew not to drink. I've made it clear to Matt that's what we expect from him. What have you said to Tim?
Nothing really. You know, a lot of kids try it at this age, so.
Yeah, well, a lot of kids don't try it too. I'm not saying that Matt's going to be this perfect kid, but if I don't tell him what we expect him, why he shouldn't drink, how's he going to know?
Do kids that age really listen?
They never admit it, Bill, but they hear more than you think.
Come on, they hear you. For more information about talking with kids about underage drinking, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
Good morning. You're listening to the Mac and Jack Sports Show on Northeast Streaming Sports.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to the Mac and Jack Sports Show. Today is our debate show, and we have our special guest, Doctor Paul Semendinger, on. I'm your host, Mac. with your co-host Jack, legendary boxing writer. And every Wednesday through Sunday, folks, we're on 8 to 10 a.m. And I'll take care of a couple of points of business first before we continue on. Just to let you all know, we have a big announcement. We have now also joined iHeartRadio. So that's another platform that you can see us on. Right now, we're on Spotify. We're on, as I said, we're on iHeartRadio. We're also on Pandora. So a lot more outlets that we're on. We're also on Instagram. We're on Twitter. We're on Facebook Live. We all got our own YouTube channel. Please go over there and subscribe to help us keep growing. And we got a couple other things, Jack, in the pot where we're going to be being on other platforms too. So Northeast Streaming Sports is growing, and we're happy to be part of it. And our website, check it out, folks, nessp.info, where you can see guests like Dr. Paul Semendinger. You have a little bio on them. All the shows are there. We have stores there that you can link to, and they advertise us. They sponsor our show, and you can get some great deals at Fanatics and also at bstbreaks.com that have the baseball and basketball and football cards. As a kid, I collected them. I still do today. They got some authentic jerseys over there. So, Jack, we got a lot of things going on. The network's growing, we're growing, and we're getting great guests like Dr. Paul Semendinger on and trying to provide you with as much sports as we can on our days, Wednesday through Sunday. So, Jack, we're going to continue on with our debate, and Doc will join us in this one too. And we're going to discuss now, just again, we're in the world of make-believe, Jack, but the Jets and Knicks, the Knicks winning an NBA championship or the Jets winning a Super Bowl, which one of those is more likely than not?
We really are in the land of make-believe. We should have saved this one for our Christmas shows. Maybe Santa Claus would scoop in and deliver, a title. But I think that would be even too big a job, for anyone on that. But let's say a miracle did happen. And if you could go back in time, and it was before the 1969 season, and we could talk about the Jets or the Mets winning a world championship, especially the Mets, saying, oh, what are the chances? Who's more likely to win? The Jets, the Super Bowl, or the Mets, the World Series? It would be considered ludicrous to think that either could happen and both happen that year.
Yeah.
So miracles always possible, even though it's the longest, the long shots. If I had to pick between in the next year, the Knicks winning the NBA title, the Jets the Super Bowl, I'm going to go with the Jets the Super Bowl if there could be any type of a miracle. First off, the Jets have 4 number 1 draft picks, 2 this year, 1 especially high, the second, and 2 next year that they could trade off the assets this year. They got a new coach in Robert Saleh, who's bringing a lot of energy. They have a few pieces, and in the NFL, strange things happen. I mean, the Jets, you could say, well, they were only 2-14, but in their 2 wins, they beat 2 playoff teams in the Rams and the Browns. So if they could beat 2 playoff teams in 2 games, why not do it for more games? I mean, you never know. As far as the Knicks go, you could talk to me all you want about improvement, but eventually you hit a wall. No matter how good the Knicks are going to get this year, even if they're playing their best possible basketball, and even if they should, by some miracle, come out of the East and get to the finals, they're not going to beat the Lakers. They're not going to beat the Jazz. They're not going to beat the Clippers. They're not going to come out of the East. Yeah, you really think they're going to beat, all the teams there like the Sixers, the Milwaukee Bucks, the Nets? I mean, it's just maybe they could beat one of them on a given playoff series, put it all together. Anything's possible, I suppose. And also you have to consider the free agent signings. Football, you can get impact players a lot quicker than you can get in basketball. So the Jets might come up with some good free agent signings. They might get Deshaun Watson. Maybe J.J. Watt joins them. They sign a couple of other guys. They trade off draft picks for impact players. I mean, you never know what could happen. And keep this in mind, too. The Jets don't have to have a great team. If they can go from 2-14 to 9-7, they can get hot during the playoffs. It happened with the Giants. Their last Super Bowl, they were 9-7. So the Jets don't have to be that great. They just have to somehow sneak into the playoffs, and then it all comes together in a couple of lucky bounces. In basketball, just by the nature of the sport, it's so much more difficult. So to me, if a miracle is going to happen, the miracle of miracles, it would be the Jets winning a Super Bowl sooner than the Knicks winning an NBA championship this year.
Well, both teams are in a very similar position, right, Jack? But in different sports. Both have new head coaches. Both need to change the culture. And both don't have that one star or huge threat to give them any kind of threat to the other teams. So I'm going to play percentages, Jack. To go to a Super Bowl, you need at least a solid 22 players on offense, on offense and defense. The special teams have to be solid. In football, the coaching staff has approximately 10 coaches that have to work together. An offensive playbook that's around 200 players or more. The defensive playbook with formations and strategies can reach up to 50 players or more. The roster is 54 players, Jack. Basketball, you have 3 coaches at the most, maybe a 12-man roster. The playbook that comes nowhere close to the NFL. A 12-man playing squad versus a 54-man squad. And adding 1 or 2 players is a difference in basketball between a championship and not even making the playoffs. In football, if you add the best receiver or a running back or, like you said, a Deshaun Watson or maybe even giving J.J. Watt there, it may not even make a difference. If the Knicks picked up an all-star guard and center to go along with the team they have right now, the possibilities are endless. If the Jets pick up Derrick Henry, Stephon Diggs, it wouldn't make much of a difference at all, Jack. Football is a lot more team-oriented than basketball. As you see, if you have 2 or 3 great players, you have a shot to get to the championship. So I get the argument, that both teams are going to have a problem getting to the championship this year, and sooner than later. It's going to take maybe 3 years to build a Super Bowl team in football. But when you come to basketball, all you got to do, Jack, is get an all-star shooting guard, an all-star point guard, or maybe an all-star center. Your team is totally different. So with the way basketball runs, and just in percentages alone, you have a chance at moving from a so-so team that doesn't even make the playoffs to a contender. Look at the Brooklyn Nets. I mean, the Brooklyn Nets last year had a good team. Now they got a big 3. Then people are talking they could go to the championship and maybe win it. That's all it takes. 3 players in a football team, Jack, don't mean a lot. In fact, sometimes means very little. As you saw by the Super Bowl, Tampa Bay added Tom Brady, and they added Gronk, and they added the guy from Pittsburgh. I never want to say his name. I always forget his name, but you know the guy I'm talking about.
Antonio Brown.
Yes, sir. They had three guys, and they went from 7-9 to 11-5. So they only gained four players, and they only moved up 4 games, Jack. Their defense in the Super Bowl destroyed Kansas City, the unstoppable offense. Their running game and offensive line punked the Kansas City defense. Any quarterback in the top 10 could have probably won that Super Bowl, Jack. Aaron Rodgers, any of them could, because it was a total team effort. And basketball, it's different, Jack. All you got to do is get LeBron James and Anthony Davis, and you're on your way to the NBA championship. You do that in football, you might improve a couple games, and that's about it. So, Doc, what do you think?
Good arguments again from both of you. My thought going in was I think the Jets are closer. Now, I'm not a big basketball fan, so I'm really speaking just from the fact that the Knicks are 12-15, and they always seem to be a disaster, and they can't seem to get out of their own way, and they haven't been able to for 30 years or so. I think the Jets are doing a lot of good things with the new head coach. There's a lot of talk in the NFL that a lot of great quarterbacks are going to be available. They have a lot of draft picks coming up. you can envision the Jets being a contending team sooner than you can envision the Knicks. But I think, Mac, your point about the fact that a basketball team only needs to bring in a great player or two, and one great player or two great players can really dominate in the NBA is definitely true as well.
All right. So there you go, Jack. You got any counter to what I said, my man?
Let me tell you, they're so far away. I mean, but in football, it's not one player. Like you said, Tampa Bay, they were 7-9 last year.
Right.
They bring in Brady, they allow him to act as kind of GM, and they bring in a number of other guys. Plus, they were 7-9 team that had potential to be better, even if Jameis Winston stayed as the quarterback. So, and now they're Super Bowl champs. They put it together, late in the year.
Yeah.
After falling to 7-5, they won their last 4 regular season games and kind of peaked for the playoffs. I just can't see an NBA team like the Knicks doing that. I could see a team like the Nets struggling all year and then maybe putting it all together and winning an NBA title. But they're already a very talented team, a better than 500 team.
Right.
But I can't see these like lower level teams getting it together. I know the Knicks got Derrick Rose, they have Julius Randle, RJ Barrett quickly, and so on. But but to actually win it all, I could see the Knicks improving, winning games, and maybe knocking someone off during the playoffs. But to actually go all the way, that's the long shot of long shots.
That's very true. The only, like I said, the only thing where I think basketball has a huge advantage is football. You've got to build a program, right? I mean, you look at Kansas City; they didn't become Super Bowl champions overnight. I mean, they had a playoff contending team. They had a good structure there. Even the Patriots with their dominance, they built a team. The Giants, they had to build a team, and that takes a few years before it starts. It doesn't just happen. Bill Belichick took over a Patriot team that already was in the Super Bowl 2 years prior, so they already had the pieces in place. In basketball, you can turn that around with 2 picks and 2 free agents, and because it's such a small team and it's such a impact those 2 players have. Where in football, if you have a bad defense and a great offense, it's very difficult to win. If you have a great defense and a bad offense, it's very difficult to win.
Guys, talk about a weak team stepping up. We could turn to baseball, the Miami Marlins.
Right.
They get into the playoffs with a 31-29 record and win a playoff series, knock off the Cubs. So at that point, anything is possible as far as the World Series went. But with baseball's shortened season, we talk about stats, this and that. The biggest test to see what fact it was, I think, is the Miami Marlins. I mean, if they're to fall back to be the old Miami Marlins, a losing team, so on, then the shortened season maybe was an aberration as far as how well they did. But if they play over 500 this year, play well, that's a reflection of a franchise on the rise.
Well, you look at San Diego, Jack. If you want to look at a team, right? San Diego last year made a heck of a run. Now they picked up a few pitchers. They're World Series bound. I mean, but their team was already in place. Last year, they played very good, solid baseball.
Wait. They get Snell and Darvish, and the Dodgers counter with Bauer, but you're already picking the Padres to go to the World Series. You say they're World Series bound.
Yes, I do believe that. Chuck. I do believe that. I do believe the San Diego Padres are World Series bound. I really do. Do.
Listen, Atlanta quietly made a move, getting Charlie Morton. They re-signed Ozuna. And the Mets, made some good moves. I mean, baseball's great. I'm hoping the Yankees at least held serve.
Well, they did.
The Yankees held serve, and I'm not sure that they did. They're serious World Series contenders, but if the Yankees took a slight dip, it's going to be hard because you got a lot of these young teams getting better, like the White Sox. Even a doormat team like the Tigers reportedly has a great farm system.
Yeah.
Moving up, so who knows?
Yeah, you never know. So we're going to go. I'm going to go to we're going to stay in football, and we talked about the Jets, so let's go with that, Jack. Should the Jets move on from Sam Darnold? So I'm going first in this one, and Jack, I don't know what you expect from Sam Darnold. Over the last 3 years, he's been on one of the worst teams in the league with no help at all from anybody. Do you believe any top quarterback would have taken the Jets not only to the playoffs, but have a winning season with the teams he played with? I mean, the Jets defense was subpar. The coach has been terrible. The offensive line has been in shambles. They haven't been able to even run the ball in 4 years, Jack. And what tight ends or wide receivers has he had to throw to? Nobody. Me and you could have played tight end on that team, Jack, and maybe had a couple catches. He had no one else to throw to. They made some bonehead free agent pickups, getting Le'Veon Bell. I don't know what they were thinking with the guy out of football and rapping and overweight and without an offensive line. I don't even care if Le'Veon Bell was in his prime. He wouldn't have gone nowhere. I can remember him taking the ball and ducking as soon as he got the ball because the defensive line was ready to tear his head off. Darnold, when he did play and was healthy 2 years ago, they went 6-2 without anybody, Jack. They had no one. And he still brought them and led them on offense to a 6-2 record. Last year, as you said, they beat 2 playoff teams, Jack. And who was that with? Who did the Jets run the ball to? Who did they pass the ball to, Jack? Sam Darnold can't play all the positions. Are there other quarterbacks out there more proven? Yeah, of course there are. But they're coming from teams that are pretty successful, Jack. The Jets, purely the last 3 years, to be honest, just stink. They stunk. The Giants did too. I'm not putting the Jets out there on Broad Street. I'm saying, but the Jets have actually stunk. They have no coaching staff. They've had no chemistry. They've had no communication. They haven't done anything in the last 3 years to improve that team. And then you're going to take this young kid out of college and you're going to go say, yeah, go win. Ain't going to happen, Jack. So I don't care who you got there as a coach for the last 3 years, or I should say as a quarterback for the last 3 years. They wouldn't have won anything. But Sam Darnold, he went 6-2 on an 8-game and within 8 games on a terrible team, Jack. So I don't know what you want from the kid. I think you should give him another couple of years under a new coach, see if the team improves with all these draft picks. But why would you want to do that, Jack? You know how New York is. If you're not good, if you're bad on a terrible team, go somewhere else. You know what I mean? So,
Doc, did you ever watch this show, The Beverly Hillbillies, an old-time show? Did you
I remember
watch
it. Yep.
Okay, Jed Clampett used to have a saying. You know, he'd see his nephew Jethro talk on stuff. He'd go, pitiful, pitiful. I mean, what kind of argument is this, Matt? Every quarterback drafted towards the top is going to a lousy team. That's the way it's set up. Sam Darnold's been with the Jets 3 years, and you keep saying, give him a chance, give him a chance. He's been with them 3 years. Let's look at the other quarterbacks that were drafted with Sam Darnold. Baker Mayfield. Right. He's been with the Browns 3 years. They were a lousy team. They were 0-16 when he went to them. They were lousy. Now he's their franchise quarterback.
Is he?
He is. They took him to the playoffs last year.
The running game took the Cleveland Browns to the playoffs last year, Jack.
And him passing to Jarvis Landry.
Yeah.
Okay, too. And Baker Mayfield, they're planning on signing him to a long-term deal. They basically determined the Browns, he's their guy in the future. There's no talk in Cleveland of getting a quarterback, none at all.
Good luck.
Baker Mayfield is their guy. Then Sam Darnold gets drafted. After him, Josh Allen gets drafted by the Buffalo Bills. Weak team at the time. Josh Allen now, you could argue, is one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. You can make the argument.
Sure.
After Sam Darnold in the first round, Lamar Jackson gets drafted. He's the MVP. I don't want to hear this about...
Jack, he went to a Super Bowl team, Jack. He went to a team that was in the Super Bowl a few years prior. You're making my argument for.
A few years prior.
You're making my argument, Jack. You're making my argument. They're going to good. The Baltimore Ravens is a great team. They've been a great team.
Okay, he's been there 3 years. Did anyone think they're saying, well, it's the coaching? Did anyone think maybe it's the quarterback? maybe the coach couldn't cut it there because he didn't have the right quarterback. No one considers that. Now, Sam Darnold maybe can be a good quarterback in the NFL, maybe, with a change of scenery. It happens with players in sports all the time. They need a change of scenery, and that's what he needs. I don't want to hear that he's had different coaches, okay? Everyone who comes out of college gets a new coach. Everyone who leaves college is in a new system with the pros. If I'm not mistaken, wasn't Todd Bowles his coach in his rookie year, Sam Darnold, and then Adam Gase the next 2 years after that. And you can hold on to Sam Darnold. There are worse things for the Jets to do. But if you invest one more year in him with the quarterback carousel going around, you miss an opportunity to pick up one of the better quarterbacks around, especially Deshaun Watson. And if Miami signs Deshaun Watson, Tua Tagovailoa is available. You could keep sticking with Sam Darnold. You said he was 6-2. That's fine and dandy. But I'm making that comparison to what Joe Torre said about Randy Johnson when Randy Johnson would give up 5 runs in the first inning and then not allow a run the next 5 innings. And then they take him on, the Yankees lose 5-2. And Joe Torre said, wow, he really pitched 5 strong innings. But you forget the disaster the first half of the season with Sam Darnold.
That's apples and oranges.
It's just, he needs a change of scenery. He's had 3 years. How much longer do you want to wait?
I want to wait, Jack. I want to wait, Jack, until the Jets have a good team. I mean, you're talking about players.
They will have a good team without a good quarterback.
They will not have a good team without an offensive line that can't hold the rushers off the quarterback. They won't have a good team until somebody can catch the ball. They won't have a good team until somebody can run with the ball. They won't have a good team. They won't have a good team until they get a good defense, Jack. What you're doing is you're taking one player. You're saying that do you believe Deshaun Watson would have taken the Jets to the Super Bowl in the last 3 years?
Deshaun Watson, statistically.
Yes. I'm talking about with the Jets. With the Jets, Jack, not with the Texans. Not with the Texans, Jack. With the Jets. Do you really believe Deshaun Watson would have took the Jets to the playoffs?
I'm not talking playoffs from a terrible team. I think Deshaun Watson would have meant a couple of extras. I don't think anyone, if Deshaun Watson was the quarterback of the Jets last year, I don't think anyone this offseason would be saying the Jets need another quarterback. Everyone would have agreed.
So they would have been quarterback. So they would have been 4. They would have been 4-12 instead of 2-14, Jack. That's a great season. So you got Deshaun Watson, and after those 3 years that Deshaun Watson is there, and he doesn't have a winning season, do you get rid of Deshaun Watson then?
We're talking about moving forward. Whether Sam Darnold be a guy, you keep him. You're not going to have as many options next year. The Jets go number 2 overall.
Why can you not pick up a quarterback with all draft picks the Jets have? Why can they not pick up another quarterback in the draft?
Deshaun Watson won't be available next year.
Deshaun Watson's not going anywhere, Jack. Deshaun Watson's going to stay with the Houston Texans. He's under contract.
So what are you going to say next year with Sam Darnold? Well, the Jets had a new coach. He's only been there 1 year. Let's give Sam a 5th year. Let's give Sam a 6th year. Let Sam go on and on and on. And guess what? In Sam Darnold's 9th year, the Jets will finally make the playoffs and get eliminated in the first game after getting in as a wild card. And then after he has an 11-year career with the Jets, they make the playoffs twice and get knocked out in the first round. You're going to talk about putting Sam Darnold's name in the Ring of Honor. You're going to say, oh, well, old Sam had a good career here. It's not his fault.
Listen, the Jets went to the championship, Jack, with a quarterback that was not very good, if you remember, a very good pro quarterback. They went to the championship 2 years in a row. Did they not? Under Ryan?
With Mark Sanchez.
And you consider Mark Sanchez a great quality quarterback?
No, not at all. So you're
There you
saying the quarterback's not that important?
I'm saying no. I'm
Uh,
saying the quarterback is important when you have a good team. You look at Burrows. Burrows got hurt, but before he got hurt with his Bengals knocking on the door,
you made my argument.
Right.
Jeff Burrows, Justin Herbert played for losing teams last year.
Right.
And they're considered, they were rookies.
Right.
No one is talking about them not being the future of their team. Everyone agrees they're going to be great NFL quarterbacks. They proved themselves even with a losing team. They're going to be elite quarterbacks in the future.
They weren't
They
talking about getting rid of Sam Darnold after his first year, Jack. They wouldn't say that he wasn't going to be the franchise quarterback.
He's been there 3 years now.
Under dingback coaches, Jack. Under dingback coaches. I mean, football coaching is very important. It's not like baseball, Jack, where you stand back there with your card and get great players and let the GM do it.
Todd Bowles,
yes,
if he didn't coach
terrible head coach.
Jets, would be the hottest coaching commodity amongst assistant coaches.
Terrible head coach.
Terrible. Super Bowl.
Terrible head coach. Terrible head coach for the Jets. He was a terrible head coach for the Jets. Terrible. He was a terrible head coach for the Jets. There's no denying it. Look at his record. Why'd they get rid of him?
I talked out, man.
Me too. Me too.
The same argument for Darnold next year. Let the Jets decide.
Yeah,
well, I think what you have, you just said the thing. They have the new coach coming in, who I think, again, not the biggest football fan, but somebody who does watch from the periphery, who maybe for the first time in a long time, the Jets are bringing in a coach who seems to be widely regarded and by everybody, and held in the highest esteem, and seems to be a lifelong football guy who everybody feels knows what he's doing, knows what he's talking about. He has instant credibility. And he said a number of weeks ago, I believe, that he's going to take a look at Sam Darnold and see what he looks like and see how it goes, and look at film and make a decision on whether or not this guy is going to be the quarterback going forward. I would say I would trust the Jets coaching staff on this one. If they feel like Sam Darnold's the type of guy who they're going to be able to use and take to the next level, then you keep him. If they look at Sam Darnold and say he doesn't have the skill set that we need, as Jack is saying, this seems to be the winter, or I guess the spring heading into summer, the offseason for the NFL, whereby a lot of top quarterbacks may be available. And if you don't feel that Sam Darnold is going to be a top quarterback, this could be your chance to get one.
That's very true, Doc. But, they got a lot of draft picks coming up in the next couple of years. And if it doesn't work out where Sam Darnold has a terrible year, and I mean, he's healthy the whole year, he doesn't have mono, he's not under duress all the time, and maybe he has a team that goes out there and plays hard all the time, and maybe they can run the ball for more than 1 yard average per carry, and he still has a bad year, I'm with Jack. I say, yeah, man, the guy is not going to do it. But if the only way that you can become a great quarterback is either you're on a good team to start with, or you're on a team where a new head coach takes over, say like Bill Parcells, or a team that was down in the dumps for a while, Jimmy Johnson, where you have a guy in there that knows what he's doing, what team chemistry is about. I mean, the Dallas Cowboys, their first year, went 1-14 or 1-15 with Troy Aikman. They could say they get rid of Troy Aikman. Well, he's a Hall of Famer. Because what happened was they built a team around Troy Aikman with an unbelievable running game and a good defense. Emmitt Smith was pretty good. I think he's the leader all time in rushing. So they after that 1-win season, Dallas didn't say, okay, Troy Aikman stinks. They didn't do that. They thought he had a lot of potential. Now, comparing Sam Darnold to Troy Aikman is pretty much a stretch right now. All I'm saying is that you got to have a team, the quarterback, before you can become good. I mean, all the great quarterbacks, for the most part, had run with great teams. They weren't just out there. It wasn't the Detroit Lions going to the Super Bowl, with Matt Stafford, who might be a Hall of Famer because he didn't have a team. And that's the problem when it comes to football and other sports. Everybody likes to, take a look at the quarterback. The quarterback is the most dependent player on his team than any other sport. You depend on the offensive line. You depend on the running back. You depend on receivers. You depend on the defense to put you in a good position. You depend on special teams to put you in a good position. It's a total team sport, and we've come away from that a lot. We look at just, the quarterback. Well, yeah, you have to have a good quarterback. But remember, guys, a lot of average to a little good quarterbacks have won Super Bowls because they had great teams. And, you don't have to go far back to see that with Nick Foles over in Philadelphia, who can't quarterback any other team but that one team to the Super Bowl. So, I understand what Jack's saying. You need a good quarterback. I agree with him 100%. And there has to be a time clock. I agree, Jack. But, man, you got to give him a clock. He doesn't have a clock to look at yet. He's just been
Listen, he had Robbie Anderson a couple of years as a receiver. It's not like he didn't have anyone. And Robbie Anderson, when he went to Carolina, okay, his game picked up a little bit. So,
right.
He
did have him, but what did the Jets do when their bonehead move, Jack? They got rid of him. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, well.
So he does have a good receiver that just
a weapon. Now, absolutely.
It's been total chaos over there, and hopefully this new head coach, whether he keeps Darnold or not, because I want to see the Jets do good. I want to see.
It won't be Robert Saleh's decision. I think Joe Douglas, the GM, he has his mind made up. Robert Saleh hasn't watched Sam Darnold actually play the last couple of years. Joe Douglas has seen all the games. Yeah. Saleh could give his opinion, but I think hearing Robert Saleh get interviewed, he knows the front office is just going to make those decisions.
They have to, Jack.
He's going to, he's allowed to bring certain members to join his staff and make on-field decisions. I think there's an understanding with the Jets of the chain of command right now. That's at least my impression.
Well, not only that, Jack, if they don't move now, those quarterbacks that they might be available are going to be gone. So Saleh doesn't have enough, as you said.
Well, if you could get a veteran like Russell Wilson, but he's very proven, do you trade Sam Darnold and some other capital to get Russell Wilson if you can't get Deshaun Watson? He's an older quarterback. How much of a future would he have with the Jets? But, players I notice in sports are playing longer these days into a more advanced stage. A guy who normally would be washed up when he's 35 is going to carry it to 40 now.
Yeah, definitely. The rules have changed a lot to keep the quarterbacks a lot safer than the pounding they used to take. So as long as they keep themselves in shape, they got a shot at playing for quite a while, a lot longer than they used to. Folks, we're going to do one more timeout before we come to the end of the show. We still got some good topics to debate, guys. Dr. Semendinger will be with us for this topic, and then we'll have one more after him. So please hang around. We got some really good stuff coming at you.
If you served honorably in our nation's armed forces and you're looking for a way to continue serving your fellow veterans in your community, then join AMVETS. Each year, AMVETS members volunteer millions of hours at VA healthcare facilities from coast to coast, helping to improve the lives of their fellow veterans through the VA Voluntary Services Program. AMVETS posts and departments also participate in a wide variety of community service projects, ranging from Americanism in our schools to supporting the Special Olympics and Boy Scouts of America. If you no longer wear the uniform today, you can still serve through the AMVETS by joining today at amvets.org.
We all make choices. When it comes to alcohol, kids make choices whether to drink or not.
Bye-bye. Remember, I'm going to Alex's party tonight and sleeping over.
Hey, have a seat for a second. Remind me about that party again?
And adults make choices whether to talk about it. That's true of parents and every other trusted adult in a kid's life. Kids want to know our expectations when it comes to alcohol and other drugs. They want guidance and honest answers to their questions. And it makes a difference when the message is consistent and part of everyday conversations. So talk with your kids and help lead them on a positive path. Because when you talk, they hear you. For more information about talking with your kids about underage use of alcohol and other drugs, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
When you hear the word asthma, you probably think of shortness of breath, coughing, or inhalers. Lots of things can trigger asthma, but the fact is that asthma doesn't just attack, it can kill. But with proper medical management, asthma is controllable. If you experience shortness of breath, wheezing, tightness in your chest, or persistent nighttime coughing, you may have asthma. See your doctor and get the facts. You'll breathe easier. For more information, call 211 Info Line. A message from the Connecticut Department of Public Health, keeping Connecticut healthy.
If you talk and they will hear you every single time.
Oh, we're getting killed.
Yeah, well, Kyle's not here.
How come?
Kicked off the team. Didn't Tim tell you? Kyle and some other kids got caught drinking beer in the park a couple of nights ago.
Really?
Yeah. Zero tolerance. He's out for the season.
Come on, it's a first offense, right?
That we know of. But why should that matter? He knew not to drink. I've made it clear to Matt that's what we expect from him. What have you said to Tim?
Nothing really. You know, a lot of kids try it at this age, so.
Yeah, well, a lot of kids don't try it too. I'm not saying that Matt's going to be this perfect kid, but if I don't tell him what we expect and why he shouldn't drink, how's he going to know?
You think kids that age really listen?
They never admit it, Bill, but they hear more than you think.
Talk. They hear you. For more information about talking with kids about underage drinking, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to the Mac and Jack Sports Show. We're on Wednesday through Sunday, 8 to 10 a.m. I'm Mac I'm your host with your co-host Jack Hirsch. We have our special guest on today, Doctor Paul Semendinger. He's a great guest we have on every Saturday. He's from the blog, Start Spreading the News, award-winning author with Scattering the Ashes, a great book, folks. Check it out, pick it up. It's a great read. And I really, me and Jack both really enjoy him being on every week. His knowledge of baseball and Yankees are unbelievable. There you go. There's the book, folks. Start Scattering the Ashes. Somebody say, start spreading the news. So, Scattering the Ashes with Dr. Paul Semendinger. I've read the book. It's an excellent read about family and a little bit of, running with marathons and stuff involved in there. And a lot of great stuff when it comes to family issues and relationships and stuff like that. It's a great read. So pick it up when you get a shot. You'll enjoy it. Jack, we've been debating a lot of things today. We've been going across the different sports planes. I mean, we've been talking about football. We've been talking about baseball. So let's get a little bit into the Hall of Fame voters, right? I mean, we just had a Hall of Fame, baseball Hall of Fame where nobody got in, which was ridiculous. Then we had a football Hall of Fame where the inductees were pretty good. But there's been a problem with the Hall of Fame voters, and we all agreed on that. I think the way the council is set up, it's set up a little bit for all sports writers to vote on these things. There's not too much involvement by former players and the NFL and fans and stuff like that. So you've got a panel of people who have their own opinions when it comes to certain sports, right? And they think this is good. They're great because of this, and maybe because steroids might have been an issue, we're not going to vote them in, and all kinds of stuff that maybe some other people wouldn't consider. And they're protected. Their names are protected. They don't make it public unless the person who says he's a voter comes out and says he's a voter. So, and a lot of people are upset with some of the choices or some of the people that weren't chosen when it came to the Hall of Fame, and why baseball's debacle of not even having one inductee in, that really got people upset. Now, the debate here is whether their name should be public to be held accountable. And I do get that argument. As I said, I think there should be set up differently. But the problem is that you may end up losing some voters. Some voters might get threatened. If you make their names public, you open them up to social media, to the fans of these teams. They could get death threats. It's happened before. And just because they didn't vote for their favorite player. And so, for instance, Jack, I think Derrick Henry is a Hall of Famer right now. I say that. That's my opinion. It's ludicrous right now. But his season gets over. He keeps playing the same way. I think he should get in. And somebody else thinks he shouldn't. Well, not only is that going to tick off football fans, but it's going to tick off the fans he's playing for, right? Even if he's like borderline, you could talk about a lot of players that are borderline whether they get in or not. And the fans of these players get upset when they're not put in. Can you imagine if their names were out there? What may happen to them? What threats could happen to their family? The destructions they might do to their homes. So there's a problem there with making them public because of the way people are today. I mean, heck, they were that way back then, right, Jack? I mean, when Hank Aaron went to break Babe Ruth's records, I mean, he got 950,000 pieces of mail sent to him, some death threats. So you're going to take a guy who works for, say, the Sun Gazette, who's a voter, and say, well, he didn't vote because this guy was borderline. He doesn't think he should be in there. You're going to open this guy up to possible death threats, to destruction of his property, to some nut out there who may want to kill him. I mean, this is the way it is today, Jack. It's not like it used to be where you had to wait for the newspaper to come out. It's instantaneous. You've got all these social feeds. You've got the ridicule, and you've got the possibility of him even being injured, as ludicrous as that sounds. So I know what you're saying. I think these guys should be held accountable in some way or some form. But to actually put their name out there and maybe open up to something that could be very dangerous to them, I don't know if that's a good idea, Jack.
Let me detour slightly from baseball, and I'll get right back to baseball and the Hall of Fame voting, to the sport of boxing. In boxing, there are 3 judges for big fights. We always know who they are. We not only know their names, they're sitting there ringside, and they make unpopular decisions. Okay, and money changes hands with betting, and we've never heard of an incident in which a judge afterwards was beaten up, anything went down, and they were, badly threatened. And I know a lot of these judges personally. And we're talking about responsibility here with the Hall of Fame voting. Your thing is, well, the whoever's making the decision voting could get threatened. First off, there's so many people voting that one individual vote shouldn't make a difference unless it's tremendously controversial. And the thing with the Derek Jeter vote here, why he wasn't unanimous, okay? One voter didn't vote for him, and that voter should be accountable. I want to know why. You can make an argument. Listen, I'm a big believer. You can make an argument for anything. I vote on a panel for the International Boxing Hall of Fame to see who gets in. And it's frustrating to see who's getting in, who's not. And they don't insist it be made public, but certain of the writers do make their vote public anyway. That's an optional thing. But especially, but the Las Vegas Boxing Hall of Fame, we only have a dozen voters or so who decides who gets into that. And I'm one of the voters. And it's an internal memo, meaning I can see how the other voters voted. I'm not going to mention the name, but the first year, obviously Sugar Ray Robinson got in. One of the voters didn't vote for him. They voted for Jess Willard, a heavyweight champion. Now, if I'm going to rationalize it, I could say, well, a heavyweight's always going to beat a welterweight/middleweight. A heavyweight is always a little more famous worldwide. You could always make an excuse. Again, I want to know who this guy is who didn't vote for Jeter. Now, is he going to catch a lot of flack? Obviously, he will, okay? But he's got to be accountable. It's a privilege to vote for the Hall of Fame. You have to be able to put yourself out there sometimes and make your choice known. I mean, like I joked with Doc before about a fantasy 3-way deal. He could catch some flack from that. I'm a Yankee fan. I could catch some flack from that. Other Yankee fans could say, how can you do that? Trade Aaron Judge, blah, 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 to the hated New York Mets. If you're a Yankee fan, I don't hate the Mets, but that's another thing. We want the most competent voters. We want voters who take the Hall of Fame process very seriously. It's a serious thing. I understand if someone's on the ballot, legally you could vote for anyone on the ballot. Legally you can do that. You can't, but listen, Nick Swisher was on the ballot last year. Are you going to tell me someone is going to vote for Nick Swisher to get in the Hall of Fame and they're going to look at me with a straight face? I would want to kick them, or I would want to revoke their voting privileges, but I can't technically because they have a right to vote for whoever's on the ballot. But they should be able to explain that choice. How do you leave a guy? How do you not vote for the guy with the 6th most base hits in Major League history? How do you not vote for a guy who's one of the most iconic players in the most iconic sports franchise in history? Okay? How do you not vote for a guy with a 20-year career like that who has all those world championships and so on? And it's just... And listen, the only player who ever got 100% of the vote for the Baseball Hall of Fame was Mariano Rivera. I'm basically talking baseball here. I'm not sure, Mac, were you talking all sports, but it would apply to all sports. You mean Babe Ruth wasn't good enough 100% of the vote? Willie Mays, Hank Aaron, Joe DiMaggio? I mean, I want to know what's the reason these guys didn't get your vote. Let's eliminate these incompetent voters or voters that have bias. We're not supposed to ever show bias. And we all know I'm a writer, okay? If I want to do an interview with someone and he goes, bleep you, Jack, he's condescending. I'm talking to him. He's hardly paying attention. I can't help but have a little bit of a bias against the guy thinking he's a real jerk. I couldn't help that. But when push comes to shove, if he's a Hall of Famer and he deserves it, I'm going to vote for him, okay? And it turns into a popularity contest of writers wanting to get revenge against a certain guy. I'm talking about accountability here, and it improves the quality of the ballot as well. Again, the one guy who didn't vote for Derek Jeter, he should be able to sit down. I want to know why. I'm curious. Make your argument to me. I mean, it's a massive long shot that you could convince me that you're right, but I want to understand your argument, even though I'm probably going to disagree with it, okay? So that's my feeling. It really should be made public.
Well, Jack, as I said, the panel should change. You shouldn't have a guy who thinks he knows more than everybody else, which I know there's no one that knows more than anybody else, making judgment calls on who and who doesn't go in the Hall of Fame. There should be a competent committee formed, and it shouldn't be just in one area. You shouldn't have just sports writers or whatever you have there voting by themselves, because of course there's bias, of course there's rivalries, of course there's problems. But I still think that whether he may make a statement, maybe the person should make a statement, not putting his name out there, maybe I'd go with something like that. But if you're going to tell me you're willing to put a guy's maybe his life or his family out there for ridicule, out there to maybe get his property destroyed, or maybe even worse, I got to disagree with that, Jack. Sure, there should be a reason, and sure, the committees should be more competent.
Matt, with that logic.
But you, Jack, today it's different, man. It's not like it was. People go out there and they do stupid things to people because of the way they feel. This is a different world we're living in.
I understand. So writers should not have a byline next to their name ever, too. We should look at it that way.
Well, I think
commentators on TV, their face and name should be covered. So
I think you're making a total invalid argument there. You're talking about a guy who's going to get a Lifetime Achievement Award compared to somebody who who's commenting on a game. I mean, that's a totally different argument, Jack. You're talking about a guy that's going to vote to see if this guy's enshrined in a place that forever can go and be looked at and be read about. This is huge compared to what you're talking about. I'm just saying the way the world is today, if you want to make it anonymous that this voter did this because of this, I'm all for that. I think they should be held accountable.
But what we'll give Doc a second, and Doc will come in a moment. I just want to say, not voting for Derek Jeter, it's ridiculous.
I agree.
I mean, I can understand close calls that could go either way that aren't obvious, okay? But who in their right mind could say that not vote for Derek Jeter to get into the Hall of Fame? When you look at the other guys on the ballot opposite him, I can understand if you had guys of his caliber all there the same year and you didn't vote for him, that's fine. But the guys on the ballot the same year as him, he was so clearly, ahead of or should have been voted for. It made no sense. Doc?
Yeah. I agree with that, Jack. And we'll give Doc.
Let's hear what.
We'll get Doc in.
All right, this will be my last debate to jump in today, and it's a good one. Mac, I hadn't thought about your perspective there, and right now in the world there seems to be a lot of people who react very strongly to various points of view, whatever they may be, through social media and things like that. And I think you make a fair point there. I would like to see the people who vote for the Hall of Fame, if they're not going to make them public, at least have a lot of pressure in that industry, the baseball writers or whatever, to say, listen, if you're going to vote, you should be willing to stand behind your vote and argue that. The guy who didn't vote for Jeter, whoever that was, I agree. I mean, if you're going to take a stand and say Jeter doesn't belong in the Hall of Fame, I'd love to hear your reasoning why. So, I'm a member of the Internet Baseball Writers Association of America, which isn't the Baseball Writers Association. It's the next best thing. And I do get votes. So when the voting comes for MVP and Cy Young Award and Hall of Fame and things like that, I make my votes public because, I think that's the trust that's given to me to be in that organization. So I have a responsibility to be transparent on the other side. And people have disagreed with my votes. Of course, I don't really decide who gets in. It's just, this is our Hall of Fame. This is who we would induct. But it's the same idea. People still get angry. People still have strong opinions. So, but like anything else, I think you especially today, you guys hit upon a lot of topics that are difficult to answer one way or the other because of other pressures and things that could influence the way people react to votes. The thing is, you want the votes to be legitimate, right? And you want to make sure that the people who are voting, so maybe even if the votes aren't made public, that there needs to be some type of an accountability within that organization. The baseball writers maybe call in that guy who didn't vote for Jeter and say, all right, give us the reason you didn't vote for Jeter. And if he says, I don't vote for Yankees or I hate shortstops, or if his logic doesn't make any sense, then you say, all right, you're going to forfeit your vote because you're just using this as some platform to make stupid decisions. Yeah. But if he can give you an answer and say, well, his range factor was terrible, and I just didn't feel like whatever. I can't even think of a reason why you wouldn't vote for Jeter. But if he can make a legitimate argument, then you say, all right, that makes sense.
Yeah, and that would be on close calls as opposed to somebody like Derek Jeter. I mean, I agree with both of you, man.
Well, we're going to skip our final debate question. We have a few minutes. I just want to say on this, my thing is before you could always make some type of argument and stretch it against why not. Like you said, Doc, well, his range factor wasn't great for shortstop. I could say he did a miserable job as Yankee captain when A-Rod had all the problems. He didn't step forward, and he wasn't a real Hall of Fame in the sense stepping forward, having a teammate's back as the captain. He didn't do his job. He took that responsible position. He was surrounded by all these great players that elevated him and made him better than he really was. I mean, they're not good arguments. Don't misunderstand me. But I can at least understand that, comprehend the arguments, even though I strongly disagree with them.
Well,
but
to
I
me,
like Doc's suggestion. He should at least be called in, even if it's going to be in private, and has to explain some semblance of logic.
Well, see, I don't even know what the rules are, guys. Why are they qualified to write or vote? Or what is there has to be some kind
There
of.
are. I think you have to be a member in good standing of the Baseball Writers Association of America for a certain amount of time. I think it's 10 years. And you have to be primarily a baseball writer, I believe. There are criteria. We could find them.
So, Doc, so when you meet this criteria and you make a vote like that, I mean, listen, there's common sense still today. Right, and everybody knows that during that class, Derek Jeter was the best representation of that era at that position. Everybody knows that. So I don't care if you've been writing for 20 years. I mean, if you're going to do something like that, he should be brought in, chastised, and released. I mean, that's just common sense. He shouldn't be in that position. The only thing I got a problem with is making people public, especially at close decisions, because then you're going to have somebody saying, well, this pitcher, he didn't win 300 games, or he didn't have this many strikeouts, and he's from my rival team, but you took my guy and he gets the same stats, and we didn't put him in, so you must have some kind of problem, and then it gets out of hand. And I see that a lot on Facebook, a lot in different social media, and I see a lot of people end up getting stupid things said about them and ridiculed and maybe lose their job. And there's so much that could happen by making these guys public, is all I'm saying. So if you got to change the committee, first of all. That has to happen. I mean, we all can agree that there's got to be more input from different people, whether it's writers by themselves or just players by themselves. Of course, they got friends too. You can't do that either. You've got to have some kind of a balance in the committee to begin with. But if somebody makes a stupid decision like that, I mean, you got to let them go. I mean, it's that simple. You know what I'm saying?
At least you talk to him. Maybe he has a good reason. And again, I think the Jeter thing's an extreme case. I don't see how you could not vote for Derek Jeter. I also think that again, there's got to be some type of integrity in the process. And if you're going to be a writer and you're going to say, like, Derek Jeter doesn't belong in the Hall of Fame, this is how you make your living. You're a writer. You go in the newspaper every day and you're putting out opinions with your name on it.
Yeah.
Probably going on sports talk shows and things like that with your name and your opinion. If that's going to be your opinion, Derek Jeter's not a Hall of Famer. Okay, you can have that opinion. That's fine, but then you should at least be able to back it up.
Yeah, it's a good point. It's a good point by both of you. So, guys, we don't have enough time to do our last debate. So, Doc, stick with us the whole show. I want to thank you all for joining us on our debate show. It's a lot of fun, and believe it or not, sometimes we don't even believe what we're arguing about. We just do it to make it interesting and to show that you can argue almost any point and make a valid point. It's all in the way you put it. It's all in your perspective, and it's all opinion. And I hope that one day everybody starts being able to say their opinion without getting ridiculed and without being made fun of and come under pressure, because that's what makes it's what makes sports in the country so great. So thanks again, guys, for joining us. Doc, thank you for coming in. We appreciate you every week. Can't wait to have you on next Saturday. Tomorrow, guys, we're going to have it used to be our football show, Jack, our Sunday football show, but football's all gone. But we will still have guests on that represent football. There's always football news. We got Robert Butler from Sportscope coming in. He talks about anything and everything, gives his opinion, sometimes not too popular, which is why I like having him come on. And, guys, just remember, if you can't watch us on Facebook or on our YouTube channel, we're available on 3 different sites for you right now. We're on Spotify, the biggest. We're also on Pandora, which is a great site. And we're on iHeartRadio, which is also a great site. So if you're driving to work or you're at work and you want to hear sports all day, you got a network called Northeast Streaming Sports, and you got the best show on there, Jack, the Mac and Jack Sports Show. Isn't that right?
Especially the Saturday edition.
Yes, sir. So, folks, thank you again for joining us. We'll see you tomorrow. We'll leave you a little bit of music. And you have a great Saturday evening. Don't get in trouble. Stay out of trouble. Don't drink and drive. All that good stuff, guys. Thanks for tuning into the Mac and Jack Sports Show. See you tomorrow at 8.